Hello, Laziali all over the world. Welcome to another episode of Lazio Lounge. We are a little bit late, but here we are again, and there's plenty of things to talk about. We're gonna review Inter Lazio, but we are even going to look forward because next Sunday it's the last game of the season, and Alistair McKenzie, there's still plenty to fight for. I mean, with the draw at San Siro, the Champions League is pretty much over. We still have a tiny opportunity, slim, I would say, but we still can reach the Europe League or the Conference League, and still, just to put it out immediately, we need 1 point to finish at least in the Conference League. So we cannot lose against Lecce next Sunday, even though, and we were talking before starting recording, Lecce need to win. Otherwise, they're going to be relegated, right, Alistair? So it's not going to be an easy match, right?
Yeah, well, like I was just saying to you, I've just finished writing a big article about all these, like the Scudetto, the Europe, and relegation, and what everyone needs, basically. It is very complicated, especially when it gets to the bottom of the table, but I think Lecce will definitely be coming up thinking a win and they're safe, which is the simplest way of looking at it. Lazio, likewise, will be looking at this thinking a win is the only way. Obviously, we need help from other people, which we can get into, and it's not looking particularly likely. But on top of that, Vittorio, it's this thing as well of coming back to the home form. And really, after the run we've been on, 1 win in 11 games since November, we have to finish this season with a degree of positivity and feel good. We have to win a home game on the final day against one of the teams down in the relegation zone. It's that simple if you even strip away everything else.
So I'm going to ask you the question that a lot of our listeners are thinking now after what we said, that we need to win against Lecce. So Basic is not going to play on Sunday.
Is that the big question? Is that
absolutely? I mean, I couldn't sleep after Sunday about that, thinking about that.
Well, look, I mean, I don't know where you want to start. If we'll maybe going back to San Siro, because the again, it's a good performance, and away from home seems to be a completely different beast. And it's funny because you end up looking at two results which on the paper are the same against Juventus and Inter, both coming away with draws, but one to me being very different to the other. And I was obviously in the last podcast very frustrated with Lazio's approach in the Juventus game and very frustrated with the performance. But I don't think we can have too many complaints this time around. Obviously, again, we're relying on this ridiculous version of Pedro to bail us out. We're relying on late comebacks again to bail us out. But actually, I think overall, it was a really encouraging display that shows that this team, when they are properly locked in to a match, they can produce good performances. It's just that consistency has obviously been such an issue.
Yeah, we have to be honest. In the second half, I don't know what happened to Inter because they were playing better in the first half than us. Then in the second, don't know if it's physical condition, mentally they were thinking already to the Champions League or something else. But the drop of form in the second half was clear to see, right? And the most disappointing thing, Alasdair, is that we conceded two stupid goals. Now, the first one is unlucky, right? Unfortunate. The ball bounced, arrived to Bisek, who, after a corner kick, it's difficult to keep the position, etc., etc. The second one, how many times did we see that type of goal, right? Cross on the second post. Every time you find out the player is alone, we complain about a foul and they score. I mean, it's hundreds of goals we conceded in the last years like that. Come on. And we were playing much better than them, right, in that moment. I thought, wow, we equalized, now we're going to win it. Instead, we conceded a weak goal.
Yeah, I'm not even going to comment on the way of conceding it because I feel like I'm just at my wit's end with this. But I said last week that my main concern was their wing backs and the threat that DiMarco and Dumfries could expose against that, defensively, that scenario where we've been so weak. But actually, we did pretty well in that regard. I thought actually kept the wings pretty quiet throughout the game, and DiMarco went off having done very little, and Dumfries, he had been kept quiet more or less up until this moment, but he scored a very similar goal in the first game, a 6-0 dismantling, this kind of like charging back post header. So it can't have been a surprise to anyone. I just couldn't believe he was free to do it. I know he's a powerful guy, and he can jump high, and it's difficult to stop him. But there must have been some sort of plan for that, you would have thought. And yeah, it seemed remarkably simple considering how well they'd otherwise defended. So yeah, I'm in agreement with you. It was a frustration. I thought, yeah, first half it wasn't a great watch. I mean, it was maybe a tactical game, you could say, but I think Lazio, we're doing that intentionally as well. They were trying to close down those spaces, make it as difficult as possible for Inter, and hit them on the break. And it was working because the biggest chance of that half before that goal came through that counter attack to Isaksen, and there were a couple of threats before then where it didn't quite pay off, but they'd found a few openings. So I thought the game plan was actually pretty good, and the thing I liked was that obviously Inter ended up scoring just before halftime, but I thought that game plan wasn't bad, and then in the second half they changed it. Like you say, also Inter clearly dropped off, but Lazio did manage to actually raise their intensity sooner than they did against Juventus. But I mean, the story's Pedro, isn't it? It's just getting ridiculous, Vittorio. What more can we say about Pedro?
I mean, if you imagine that last summer we were talking about, yeah, we have to sell Pedro. He's finished. He's done. Last year he had a terrible season. I think he scored 4 goals considering all the competition we played. So imagine going back last August and say, hey, Pedro is going to be top scorer next year. I mean, I would have laughed and say, okay, you drank too much this time of year. Instead, he's top scorer, both in Serie A and Europe League. He's top scorer of the team with Tati Castellano, only that he played half the minutes Tati played. And the other thing important, Alasdair, is he's only scoring decisive goal, right? He scored 3 goals at San Siro this season in 2 games. When he scored the winning goal against Empoli, he's always scoring important goals. It's unbelievable. He's 38, Alasdair, and he's never looked this sharp, right, with the Lazio shirt.
So, what do you think of this? Obviously, in the wake of the game, there's been a lot of talk about a new contract being given to Pedro. He's clearly quite up for it himself. Maybe a 1-year extension. It's worth remembering the context of he is on over 2 million euros contract, which is not the highest, but it is up there in the higher ranks of the Lazio salary list. So are you in agreement with the idea of giving him 1 more year?
Absolutely. I think if you play like this, he deserves it. I mean, I would say it's better to keep Pedro rather than Tati Castellano. I mean, he's a better player, more important for the team. And so, yes, obviously, he deserved it. And I mean, how many games did we win or draw thanks to Pedro this season? So, yeah, obviously, if you're talking about he's going to be the starter next year, again, I think we have to rotate. I think it's better when he comes in the second half rather than starting the game. And watching the game on Sunday, I was thinking one of the biggest mistakes Baroni made this season was starting Pedro against Bodoglin. I thought Pedro should have come in the second half so that we would have him available for the penalties instead of starting. I mean, Sommer understood where the ball was going, but it was impossible to stop it, right? And this is not the first penalty he takes like that. That's unbelievable. Last minute of the game at San Siro, Inter pretty much lost the Scudetto for that penalty. I mean, name someone in the team that has been more important this season for us.
Samuel Gigot.
Yep.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think when we get around to our Lazio Lounge Awards, once the season's over, it'll certainly be interesting seeing how those polls go, and what people say when it comes to player of the season in these kind of conversations. There's a few contenders, but he's definitely one of them. And yeah, I think giving him another year at this point is a complete no-brainer, because it's not just obviously the form he's in, you have to, but on top of that, it's the example he's setting. And I was saying this in a very frustrated way a week ago, but I'll say it in a more optimistic way this time. Like, the oldest guy in your team pretty much is the one who's providing all the energy on the pitch, and the one who is really setting the example for everyone else to follow. And it's easy to say that with players who have experience and players who've won trophies and all these things. It's very easy to just say that, um, about anyone, but actually, not every player is capable of kind of passing that on, or making that have an impact on the teammates around them. And I think Pedro does really, by his example, by his attitude and his application on the pitch more than anything. I mean, you
You know,
mentioned Castellanos. I think the guy whose position is at risk is Isaacson at the moment, because Isaacson
yeah,
starts the game, misses an absolutely huge chance, not for the first time. A couple of other breaks we had, his final ball just didn't connect. And then Pedro comes on and basically changes the game single-handedly. And yeah, the penalty you mentioned, it is the ultimate ice in the veins penalty. Like, they know what that meant. You know, San Siro is completely tense because they know that the Scudetto's on the line, and there's no Lazio fans there. You know, and he just blocks everything else out. And
you know what? You know what was it funny about that? Because I rewatched it yesterday, and you can see, like AC Milan did when he scored the penalty at the last second. They were trying to, put pressure on Pedro, and you could see his face like, "Come on, this for me is like warming
yeah,
up and doing a training."
he
It
finds it
was,
funny.
yeah, it was funny to see his face like, "Come on," you know. I mean, imagine we saw it against Bodo Glimt, right? Tati Castellano face was, like, this is live or die penalty. He was like, "Hey, I want a World Cup title. Come on, this is a simple penalty at the last second, nothing special." He's so important, and he's really, really another level. And again, Lotito said it yesterday. The mistake Roma made with giving us Pedro for free, it's unbelievable. But, again, I go back to last summer. We were here talking, say, okay, he's done. He's been a great player, 37 years old. He's done. Terrible season last year. Thanks, Pedro. Go to Saudi Arabia and get the last money check. No, this year he proved everybody wrong. Baroni giving him an opportunity, and we have to say that Baroni gave an opportunity to pretty much everybody in the roster, except Ibrahimovic, I would say. But he gave an opportunity to everybody. Nosley didn't take it. Chauna didn't take it. Pedro definitely took it. And what a season. I mean, terrific. And Alasdair, it would be really important if we would be able to keep him when he retired inside the I don't know if as a assistant of Baroni, or like a club manager like Angelo Peruzzi, but I think his experience, his knowledge, his way of thinking football would be fundamental inside a club who hasn't got that much.
Yeah, we've talked about this kind of over the years, this thing of having former players within the club, and we've obviously had a few examples as time's gone on. And I think it can be a helpful thing. I think you obviously need the right kind of personality, the right kind. You need to have them there for a reason too, because I think you don't want to just have them there for
Yeah,
just
of course.
just for the sake of it. But yeah, I think he's been one of the best signings of this era of Lazio, because to get him from your rivals for nothing, and then have him contribute in this way. I mean, it's easy to be hard on ourselves for what we would have said last summer. I've not listened back, but I'm sure you're right. I'm sure we were saying all those things.
Yeah, yeah.
And but everyone was, because the reality was he was coming off a poor season and he was getting older. And when you have a 36-year-old winger, you are obviously going to start asking questions. But yeah, it's been an incredible story watching him this year. And also, you got to ask the question, where the hell would we be without him? Because, like you outlined there, he's not one of the starters in this team. The contributions he's making are almost entirely off the bench. I mean, 9 of the 10 Serie A goals he's scored have been coming off the bench. And this thing of Lazio leading the league in goals in the last 15 minutes of games and managing to grab all these points from losing positions in games and so on, he has led the charge in a lot of that, not only from the goals he's contributed himself, but from, like I say, coming onto the pitch and actually adding intensity and energy to Lazio's game, which is otherwise lacking. And that's what you need from your kind of super subs. Otherwise, games can fade out. And we saw that for ages under Mauricio Sarri, where Lazio could never change the momentum of a game. They could never get back into a game if they fell behind.
Yeah.
That's all changed now.
Yeah, 21 goals scoring from players coming from the bench, but of those 21, nearly half, 9 are from Pedro. So, that tells you a lot, Alasdair, right? But the draw against Inter was an important game. I mean, I don't think a lot of us were thinking we go there and we win. But this pretty much takes off all the opportunity to finish in the top 4, Alasdair. Juventus has a huge opportunity, even though they're playing against Venezia in Venice, and Venezia need points. Otherwise, they will be relegated. So, as you wrote the article, what are the conditions? It's not very difficult. I know them as well. But what are the conditions to be met to finish top 4 for Lazio?
Well, we have to beat Lecce for a start. I mean, that's by far the simplest part. And beyond that, basically, it's not just that Juve have to not win. Juve have to lose, because if Juve draw, the best we can do is finish level with them. And here we go again. Alasdair's going to talk about head-to-head. We don't have the head-to-head. We don't have it against anyone around us. I mean, it is a disaster this year with this.
Only Atalanta, but it's out of reach. So
no, yeah, Juve, Roma above us and Fiorentina, Bologna below us. We don't have head-to-head on anyone, which is pretty shocking, to be honest. But anyway, so we need Venezia to win, regardless. Venezia themselves have to win. They still need other things going their way, but they know they have to win to have any chance of staying in Serie A. So that is good, at least, that we've got that on our side. When it comes to Roma, provided we beat Lecce, we basically need Roma to not beat Torino. So a draw would be enough in the Roma-Torino game. The problem being, Vittorio, as I was saying just before we came on, Torino's kind of the game you want in Serie A right now, because they seem to have kind of stopped their season already. They're in mid-table. They're not really going to be able to do. I think the best they can do is stay where they are, which is 11.
So this for our listener from abroad is something they struggle to understand, but it's very common in Italy, and it's really disappointing. We arrived to the end of the season, and there are this club. I mean, Chievo Verona and Sassuolo were famous for this, right? They had terrific start of the season, and then January onwards, they started losing game with no sense at all. They were losing against weaker team. They were giving up from January onwards because they didn't have nothing to fight for. Then we watch Premier League games, and we see completely the opposite. So it's very disappointing. I think Torino lost 3 of the last 4 games, right? And drew 1. So it's unacceptable. I mean, yeah, you don't have nothing to fight for, but I mean, you're a player. Do you love to lose games? I mean, that's not possible, right? Instead, this is what happened. And I'm not saying Torino is losing on purpose, but they simply not giving nothing, not trying to win.
Well, if we're trying to be optimistic and find a way of this miracle happening, they are at least at home. That is something.
Yeah.
And the other thing, the main thing, is what I've just said. They don't have to win. We're not relying on Torino winning. Yes, we're relying on Venezia winning, but we're not relying on Torino winning. So an ugly draw would be enough. And Roma, for all their good form recently, they're not a team that score loads and loads of goals. So if Milinkovic Savic, who's had a great season, if he wants to help out his bros former team here, it's his moment to
To
shine and
shine.
just have the game of his life and hold them to a 0-0 draw. I mean, that's probably the best we can hope for. But I mean, I didn't get on there to the danger below us, because this is a thing we're talking about our chances of finishing top four, but we can't mess this up as well, because if Lazio lose this game, there's a chance that Fiorentina or Bologna or even both could jump above us again, with head to head being the way it is. If both of those teams won and we lost, then we would finish all the way down in eighth. So yeah,
Yeah, well, we have to point
out of Europe altogether still.
we have to point out that we don't care about Bologna because they already qualified for the Europe League. So even if they finish above us, we're still getting the position. The problem is Fiorentina, because we lost both home and away game. And if Fiorentina wins and we don't, they gonna, if we lose against Lecce, they're gonna finish level with us, and they're gonna go in Conference League, and we're gonna be out of everything.
But I should say Fiorentina are away to Udinese, who are the other Torino of this conversation.
Yeah.
They're in exactly the same position.
Yeah, yeah. And instead to finish in Europe League, Alasdair, what do we need to do?
Well, for Europa League, it's just a case of getting above Roma. So that is basically, again, needing to win and needing them not to win. And that's what it comes down to, because a draw, we can catch them, but they've got the head-to-head. So, yeah, we basically need Torino to help us in some way. I mean, what do you think of this thing, though, with, say Champions League? It's unusual to be in a situation where it's 4, 5, 6 champions Europa Conference. And that's obviously very different to last year, where fifth was enough to even get in Champions League. But you know, it will be around this time that people will start having this conversation, having this debate. Do we even want to be in the Conference League? You know, is it not better to have a year out of Europe and not have the travel and the extra games and all this? I mean, where do you stand on the idea of a Conference League campaign, which is where we are right now?
Yeah, I mean, for people abroad in Rome, there is this huge discussion started already Sunday afternoon. People writing, "No, I don't care about the Conference League. Let's get out of it." Obviously, one of the two biggest issue of the Conference League, Alasdair, is that money-wise, it's worthless. I mean, it's useless. You don't get nothing out of it, pretty much. Fiorentina last year reaching the final got like 17 million euros. That is less than Lazio got from the group stage of the Europe League this season. So just to give a context about that. The second biggest issue is that you're going to play against teams that are far away from Italy, because they're not English. Well, there's one English team, one French, etc. They are Romanian, Bulgarian, Ukrainian, etc. So they're going to be long travels. And this, considering you're going to play every time on Thursday, it's a big issue, right? It's going to be a problem. The thing is, it's a European competition. We are not Real Madrid. We didn't win 20 Champions League and so on. If you play it, you have to play it to win it. Otherwise, it's better not to even start it. So this is the point. We have to play this competition, if we reach the competition, to win it. I know it's an issue, but at the same time, you're playing so weaker team that you can really start your B team every time. You know, you could even say, okay, Guendouzi and Rovella, you're not even traveling in the Conference League.
Yeah.
And save them. You know, Belayan, you are playing in the Conference League. Basic, hey, it's your moment. So, but I think if you're starting, if you're qualified for the Conference League, you have to try to win it. And you know, we saw Fiorentina this season. I mean, they played against embarrassing team, and they even didn't reach the final. So,
well,
again,
I mean, Betis are a good team.
Yeah, but you find it in the semi-final, right?
Yeah, but that's what. Yeah, so I was going to say the difference of the Conference League is there's only 6 league phase games rather than 8, so it is at least it's not quite as demanding as the Europa League was, and those extra 2 games are a killer. I mean, they really wind me up that they introduced those. So you don't have to play quite as many games. I do agree. I think that Lazio have hopefully learned by now that in the Europa League is a strong competition nowadays, and you can't get away with trying to
No.
play your B team and qualifying.
Well, you
Enough.
can in the group stage, right?
Not always. We've tried this year after year and not managed to get through. I mean, we tried that year we had Celtic and Cluj and all that lot, and we just dropped out. And it's just it's not a given that you can do that in the Europa League. But Conference League, I think the standard of opposition obviously allows you to probably be more flexible with the team you're picking midweek. I'm not sure with the financial stuff because obviously what you're saying is compared to the Europa League, you earn a lot less, and that is clearly true. But I just had a quick look at it here. Basically, if there's an article saying that if Chelsea win it, they'll earn over £20 million. So that's about 25 million euros or so, and that is not a crazy amount compared to the Champions League or even Europa League. But that is a lot of money for Lazio because Lazio are not making 20 million.
Yeah, but
Very
this year from the Europe League, only arriving first in the group phase, you made 21.
Yeah, but I'm saying forget about it. I'm saying that the difference isn't. I mean, obviously, we would rather be in the Europa League. That's not the argument here. The
No,
argument is whether we would rather be out of Europe altogether or in the
yeah.
Conference League. And so I would say, obviously, the Conference League. I agree. I think if you're in it, you need to try and win that tournament and take it seriously. But I think it is a competition that isn't as demanding as the Europa League because fewer games, weaker opposition that you can rotate against, and you can basically wait until the big knockout games before you start really upping your game to get into there. And on top of that, you're going to be getting into double figures of millions regardless. And I think that's money Lazio could do with. So I'm absolutely, if the option is Conference League or no Europe, Conference League all the way. Absolutely.
Plus, I think from next year, if you win the the Conference League, you're gonna be qualified for this new European Super Cup, right?
Oh, I
I
haven't
think
even considered that.
I think they're changing it, right? They're putting a Conference League, Champions League all together. So this is something worth mentioning if it's gonna happen. But yeah, I mean, last time we didn't finish qualify for a European competition was 2017, 2018. That is the year we started the podcast, by the way. So,
Good omen.
yeah. No, it was the year afterwards, the season afterwards. We started end of the 2016, 2017 season. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think you have to play in a European competition. Obviously, you need a better squad. But I mean, this was a goal, and I mean, well, our goal was the Champions League. But with this team, I think you have to try and win it. Now we don't know, even because Alasdair, there's a huge risk that Manchester City will finish in the Europa League. So
well, they won last night, didn't they? So I think they're probably okay.
I didn't see that they played the. Yeah, they're third now.
Yeah, look, I mean, I would love another crack at the Europa League. I think, to be honest, any Europe is good, and it's not exactly groundbreaking to say that the preference goes in the order of champions, Europa, and Conference. But yeah, I think any European football is going to be a bonus. I think that the Europa League, because I think you kind of win anyway here for Lazio, because I think the Europa League, after the season we've had, okay, it ended in disappointment, but I think we've seen and felt what a serious Europa League campaign can feel like, what that can look like. And it's been so long since we've had any sort of ambition or success in that tournament And okay, quarterfinals, you can't quite call it a success, but it is as well as we've done in the last 25 years. So, that in itself is something, and a great league phase and all the rest of it. And I think we saw the benefits of how you can use it to have good squad rotation and help your season as a whole. But it also opened our eyes to the fact that the squad does need more and more depth, more quality in order to push into the second half of the season and have success in these competitions. I think that probably applies for the Conference League too, by the way, because you do get serious teams by the end of that tournament. And were we to come up against a Chelsea or something in that competition, it's going to be difficult, given everyone's on their last legs right now. But yeah, I think Champions League would be absolutely amazing, but it would be amazing because what we have to do to get there is so unlikely as well.
Yeah. We talked about Pedro. Let's talk about Vecino, because his contract is expiring end of June, and he missed a lot of game time this season for injury. But when he's on the pitch, especially in the last games, I thought he's still an important piece of the puzzle, right? Maybe not starting every game, but a little bit like Pedro coming in. His experience, his gameplay. Would you renew his contract like Pedro, 1 year?
How old is Vecino now? 33, maybe?
Yeah, something like that. Let me check.
Well, yeah, the question is whether he'd be happy to do
33.
one more year.
He's turning 34 in August.
Right. Yeah, I don't see a harm in one more year. I mean, I think he's had a pretty poor season, but obviously he's had a lot of fitness issues along the way. And I do think, like you say, he's made an impact at the tail end and shown what he can do to give something a bit different. I think it's helped having a player on the pitch who actually does make those runs into the box. I mean, I've made this complaint a few times this year, but it's for all their brilliance this season, Guendouzi and Ravella don't do that. They don't offer you a goal threat from midfield, and they don't really get into the box to try and score those scuffy goals like the one Vecino got against Juventus. Vecino can also be used as an aerial target as well because he's good in the air. So I think he's a really useful player to have. I would say that if they don't give him a new contract, they should definitely try and find a player who's built in the same way, the similar model of player, a kind of Scott McTominay figure for Lazio. That's what we need.
Are we ever going to finish a podcast without naming a Scottish player? I mean, this is getting embarrassing. Every single podcast, it's a shame. I mean, it's incredible.
If we actually sign one, then
that's going to be it's going to be the end. I was going to say, if Lazio sign a Scottish player, we're going to close the podcast, right?
Every other team in Italy is doing it, so why can't Lazio get involved?
The problem, Alasdair, is Fabiani don't even know where Scotland is. So we're pretty much what? No, I know England. Where is Scotland? Scotland is not England, right? Where is it? So I think we're safe. Talking about Scotland, Nuno Tavares started the game on Sunday. That was a huge surprise. I thought he had a decent game. Nothing special, but not even that bad. And most surprising, he's been called to the Final Four of the Nation League with the Portugal after pretty much not playing a single game in the last month or so. That's positive, right, for Lazio?
Did this not happen in March as well? Like while he was injured
No, he was playing. He got injured the game before at Bologna. Do you remember?
Okay, yeah.
He was playing.
Yeah, well, obviously there were concerns when he went off again, but apparently just cramp, so we should be okay there. It's become this thing now that as soon as Tavares is lying down, you're worried about what's going on. Yeah, I agree. I was thinking the same thing. When I first saw his name on the team sheet, I was thinking, A, is he fit enough? And B, is this the right call tactically because he can't defend properly? But actually, I thought he had quite a contained game. He was quite disciplined in a way that he isn't usually. And yeah, I mean, he did get up the flank. I mean, there was one break where he put in an absolutely beautiful ball right
Yeah.
in the defense in front of the keeper. Perfect delivery, and there was just no one there. But we've not seen that for a while from Tavares, so that was really nice to see because it was just that exactly the kind of move we saw earlier in the season, where it's just that kind of triangle passing in the middle to set him free down the side, and a great delivery. So I really hope we can start to see the best of him again. I think he could do with some time off, to be honest. So I'm not sure that going into national camp, and I don't know how much he's going to play, to be honest, but I just hope he can kind of recharge his batteries a bit this summer.
Well, I was thinking, it's a nice window, so it's a huge opportunity for him to shine, and maybe we get an amazing offer from some club.
Well, what counts as an amazing offer, do you think, for Tavares?
30 million, that would be amazing.
30 million.
I don't know if it's possible, but maybe from a Premier League club.
We signed him for about 3, didn't we? I mean,
I think.
that would be quite something. Yeah, I mean, I think the problem we've got with the idea of a Premier League team coming in doing that is that he's already known in the Premier League, and they've already seen what we've just seen, which is that he's very good going forward, but not particularly in defence. And he's already had a chance at Nottingham Forest and had a chance at Arsenal and so on. So I would be surprised if the Premier League are going to come shopping and throwing huge money at him. I think they might have if he continued the first 6 months into the second 6, but I don't think anyone is blind enough to see that the second hasn't been problematic for him.
Yeah. Well,
and we need fullbacks, by the way, so I don't think we should necessarily be selling him because we need bodies in those positions for next year.
Yeah, but the question is, can you rely on Nuno Tavares after this season? I mean, he missed so many games.
Yeah, but if you can't, you need proper replacements, proper backup. I think he's such a unique asset that I would like to have him in the squad, because I think that when he is fit and he's played in the right way, he's such a danger, and it's very difficult for teams to deal with him. And Baroni probably understands better now how to use him as well. So yeah, I would like him to be in the squad next season, but I would also like more variety in the fullbacks we've got, and a bit more defensive solidity and perhaps flexibility as well. So we're not going to start talking about the Mercato now, because I'm sure we'll get plenty of chances, but that's definitely one we'll end up discussing at length, I think, this summer.
Well, you have McLazzari who can start, so I think he can be a reliable option, this Scottish guy playing for Lazio.
McLazzari.
Yep.
I like the sound of that guy.
Yeah. So Sunday is going to be a difficult game. People are not considering the fact that Lecce needs to win. They're coming to Rome on Thursday, Alasdair. They're doing a little retiro in Rome to get prepared to the game. This tells you how much they're focused on that game. And, I mean, Lecce has to win, right? Otherwise, they're going down. And that could have a huge impact in the game, right?
Yeah, well, there's all sorts of permutations at the bottom. I mean, if they lose, they could still avoid relegation by a playoff with Empoli, for example. And it's quite complicated down there because there's 5 teams who could still go down. But yeah, for sure, the simplest way is that they win and then they stay up. They've been in terrible form. I mean, I saw that the win they got, obviously, against Torino was their first this year in 2025. I'm just double checking. I'm actually right about that. Oh, no, sorry. They got a couple in January, but since January, they haven't won any games. So they have been in dreadful form, but obviously they've gone and won a game just before they play Lazio. So, and yeah, fighting for your lives. It's not really the end of season game you want, is it? We would rather be playing Torino or Udinese right now. But still, once you take a step away from it, Lazio are also fighting for their lives in terms of their chance of Champions League. And Lazio are up in 6th and Lecce are down in 17th. So you're at home. You can kind of forget about all that. This is still a game you're huge favourites to win, and you should win.
Yeah, but you mentioned at home. I mean, this season, this 2025, we are really struggling at home, and I still didn't understand why. I mean, one game won against Monza, who's got relegated already. It's concerning.
And we failed to beat a lot of those other teams down there as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. But 1 point would be enough, right, for the Conference League?
Yeah.
Well,
for minimum Conference League, yeah.
yeah. Well, again, I don't rely that much on Torino, so I think all the other opportunities are quite difficult. We would need a miracle. So, miracle rarely happen to Lazio. So I'm not very confident. But
let's all remember this next year as well. When we're playing these big games, the head-to-head is very important. Let's all remember this. Yeah. I mean,
again,
even Bologna, we were 3-0 up in that head-to-head. How did we lose that one?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about the away game.
Yeah.
Bologna. Anyway, Alasdair, I think we can wrap it up here. Thanks, everybody, for listening. To our Patreon, thanks to your support, patreon.com/Lazio Lounge. Membership starts at $2 a month. We are going to do a Q&A exclusive for our Patreon next week. So we'll post out for the questions. So when you're ready, start writing question. Alasdair has to say something important about the questions, right?
Oh, yes. We will be doing our annual Lazio Lounge Awards the week after the Lecce game, which will include a general season review. One of Vittorio will discuss player of the season, game of the season, signing, most improved, all the usual stuff.
Referee of the season.
Referee Vittorio's referee rant of the season. So when we're doing the Q&A, please send in lots of questions, but please try and make them not asking us who the signing of the season is and things, because we're going to do all of that in the season review. So don't make it too season review-like, because that will be coming just a few days afterwards.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks, Alasdair, for joining me. And we're going to be back next Monday. Take care, guys.
Cheers.